So, and she says, how do you want the ham sliced?
And what did you say?
Well, I told her it's just my snacking ham.
And how'd she take that?
Oh, no. Well, started going on and on about how they had my picture up in the back and blah, blah, blah. Don't make them another ham.
Okay. How about this one?
All right. What about Kevin Henderson?
Yeah. That sounds real to me. Yeah.
$2?
Make him $5.
Hey guys, what are you doing?
Nice.
What's going on?
Hey, Cecil, Tom, you guys are early.
Early, yeah.
Is this the back end of modestneeds.org?
And your own Patreon account? What's going on?
Fine. Okay, so since this episode was on the Salvation Army, we got talking about fake charities, right?
Like modestneeds.org.
Right.
Okay,
Which we may or may not have been using the past 4 years to launder money to ourselves through fake Patreon accounts.
Fake Patreon accounts.
What?
Yeah.
No, you have not. We met Keith. We have had Keith on our show.
Tom, you met a man named Keith.
There was a guy,
is what you
Keith.
met.
I knew his ass was too luscious to be the head of a charity.
Okay, well, hey, jig is up. So we give it back or we find a new charity. You can't.
Or we could split the more than $1 million that we've raised over the last couple of years.
Okay, so are we doing fake names or what? How's the game
Fake
work?
names,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, mostly
So,
fake, but
alphabetical
they
or
sound
just kind of grab and go?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I really hope Keith doesn't listen to this episode.
I'm sure he'll be flattered.
Incredible ass on that guy. Boom.
Oh my God, yes.
Fucking-
it's like a Georgia Peach.
It's like a dump truck.
Mwah.
It's like a fucking dump truck.
Just want to get up in there.
Hello and welcome. Citation Needed, podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts because this is the internet. That's how it works now. I'm Cecil, and I'll be ringing this bell, but I won't be able to do it without my bell boys. First up, 2 bellhops and a barbell. Eli, Noah, and Tom.
Yeah, I know it seems like I'm clearing my throat for a tip, but I'm actually just desperately trying to cover the noise of my farts. So
But he's standing in front of your luggage while he does it, so maybe hustle up with that tip regardless.
Cecil, I'm not sticking my neck out on that one because I have no neck.
It's true.
No established.
It's true.
It's true. Canon now.
Also joining us tonight, our bell tower, Keith.
Oh, fun because tall. Yeah, classic. Love it. Love it.
Well, I was going to go with Baby
tall
Bell
and Tom
cheese,
has
but
no
you got
name.
pissed about cheese last week, so I don't know what Bell to do.
He's mad
Bell
at his
cheese is great. I like
personality.
that one.
Okay, all right. You want me to reintroduce you with Baby Bell cheese? Or
Yeah,
we good?
please.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
Baby Bell Cheese.
All right.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Great. Heath is here. Cheese. Go.
I think it's weird that we make Keith do this podcast at gunpoint. I appreciate our longevity, but I do think it's odd.
All right. Non-patrons, this is our padlock bucket that we would like you to put change into. And if you'd like to learn how to slip us some cash, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Tom, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Ring-a-ding-ding, Cecil. We'll be talking about the Salvation Army.
Salvation Army. Noah, why are we talking about the Salvation Army?
Because it's that time of year again. Right, the time of year when suddenly every big box store and mall in this country is preceded by a ringing bell and a red kettle and a fuck ton of underinformed people dropping money into said kettle, thinking they just donated to a charity. But they didn't. Because the Salvation Army is not a charity, it's a church, and there's a huge difference between those two things. Right, like, for example, a charity has to tell you where the money they just took from you went and how much they pay their employees and stuff. So I hope that we could raise awareness of this fact by looking at the history of the organization.
No, that's good. Okay, so where does our story start?
In London's East End in 1865. That's where former Methodist Reform Minister William Booth first founded the East London Christian Mission, which would later become the Salvation Army. Booth had left the church a dozen years earlier after growing disillusioned by the lack of focus on service to the less fortunate. Instead, he took to the street and ministered to the least among us, the homeless, the drunkard, and the prostitute. Or at least that's what the hagiography promoted by the church says. The truth is there's no fucking record beyond Booth's own claims as to why he left the church. And there's every reason to believe that among his chief motivators was the fact that they weren't prudish enough about alcohol.
Oh, okay. So it's like stolen valor, but for stuff that matters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that matters, Cecil. I mean, never minding, of course, that 90% of all enlisted never actually do any of the fighting stuff. They're all heroes. All of them are heroes.
All heroes. They deserve
our
to get
policy.
on the plane earlier than me. That's what it is.
Line cooks and mechanic heroes.
Anyway, so legend has it that Booth hadn't wanted to start a church. He just wanted to minister to people that would then turn to other churches. But those other churches didn't want to be all full up with poor people. So he had to form his own church and mission in 1865. And it would keep its generic name until 1878. The new name came about when Booth was dictating a letter to his secretary in which he referred to his mission as a volunteer army. William's son Bramwell, there's a name that didn't catch on for some reason.
Bramwell?
Yeah. So
He
Bramwell.
brams excellently. Actually. Excellent.
So exactly. So Bramwell objected. He said, quote, "Volunteer? I'm no volunteer. I'm a regular." At which point the secretary was told to strike out the word volunteer and substitute salvation.
And that secretary's name, Albert Einstein.
Okay, also, I have literally no idea what that "I'm no volunteer, I'm a regular" means. None. Were you conscripted into the Bell Ringers Brigade? Because that's what a non-volunteer army is.
The real answer is just such a dry and boring thing about how the British classify their reserves. There's just no funny way to explain. So I'll leave it hanging. Now, so again, this is, of course, the church's official story. And like most churches' official stories about any fucking thing, it's bullshit, right? The truth is, William Booth really, really, really wanted to play army despite being a grown-up. Okay? His church isn't just called an army. It's army themed through and through. Like, they call their ministers officers and their laity soldiers. They dress in military-style uniforms with different colored epaulets denoting various ranks within their organization. The ranks themselves are military. There's like general, colonel, lieutenant, etc. They call their meetings war congresses. They call their creed the Soldiers' Covenant and used to call it the Articles of War. When they move officers to new ministries, they call those instructions marching orders. The incredibly creepy slogan "Blood and Fire," which has appeared on their official logo since 1879, is called their war cry.
Isn't that also a Trump biography
Yeah,
now?
well, yeah, probably. But their hymns are traditionally accompanied by a brass band. Hell, they even have their own form of military-style salute where you lock your elbow and point your right index finger at the sky in case anybody wonders where God is. Right? It's up. By the way, he's up.
You throw in a few orders of fried cheese curds, never-ending breadsticks, and a 24-pack of light beer, you have the Oath Keepers. That's the Oath Keepers.
Okay, if William Booth drops a gun and shoots himself in the fucking eye like Stuart Rhodes, I'm going to be really happy about this story.
Yeah. So here's a fun.
Like I went to Yale.
Yeah. So here's a fun game you can play. If you do the stupid salute thing at the guys with the buckets, they think you're part of the Salvation Army and then they do it back and then you switch fingers and you get to watch them get sad. It's the best. It really makes my Christmas.
Now, as spooky as it sounds for a church to call itself an army, I do kind of wish that caught on and all the various Protestant offshoots all developed a theme a la Batman villains, right? It'd make them so much easier to tell apart.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Giuliani is, in fact, the Penguin of Batman.
Yes.
Okay.
That helps with the GOP offshoot of Protestantism. But it's confusing because Roger Stone looks like the Penguin and also Hugo Strange, the Riddler, and the Joker at all times, all at the same time.
Yeah, it kind of does. Now, of course, it's worth noting that this was a prime era for new weird-ass denominations of Protestantism, right? So Seventh-day Adventism was founded in 1863. Jehovah's Witnesses started in the 1870s. The Church of Christian Science was founded in 1879. So Booth was working in a seller's market of sorts.
Yeah. He's the MySpace of Protestant missions, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like he's more like the Yelp, right? Because people think it's a good thing, but it's actually just super bigoted and corrupt when you Google it.
Ranking Protestants on the crazy scale feels a lot like just like graphing a horizontal line.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. So
a really low one too, like a really low one.
And
the x-axis is the graph. Yeah.
There we go.
So now, theologically, the Salvation Army didn't differ much from the Methodist Reformed Church that Booth had preached at before. But two important differences were their rejections of both baptism and communion. See, Booth argued that Christians relied on symbolic stuff that represented grace rather than actual grace. And in his defense, he was right. About that. He still is, actually. Of course, there's also a bit of the puritanical prohibitionist thread that comes through on this. They literally refuse to serve wine because alcohol is bad.
Right. Which means Booth thought someone was getting a sip of the backwash grape juice at church and thinking to themselves, well, golly, I need another sip of that.
Right. Yes, that would be enough. And to be clear, the temperance movement drove them as much as anything early on. Right. They focused their ministry on alcoholics, morphine addicts, and prostitutes. And while that might sound like the makings of a hell of a party, they were against all that stuff. So no, it ruined good parties. In fact,
JFK and Stalin. It's just a lot of fun stuff in there. Yeah.
So in fact, they preached against alcohol so virulently and effectively that they ended up making a lot of enemies amongst the pub owners in London. And then, as now, of course, people were inherently suspicious of any new religious movement. All the more so if they called themselves an army, wore military uniforms, and called each other Colonel such and whatnot. So when you combine that with the bar and brothel owners they kept pissing off, there was a pretty substantial opposition to their movement early on.
Jeez, it sounds like an HOA with fancy uniforms.
It really is.
That is a great idea. I am now only responding to my HOA complaints if they are hand delivered by someone dressed as Colonel Klink.
Yes.
Otherwise, my lawn stays this high.
Right. So now eventually opposition to the Salvation Army coalesced into the decidedly cooler sounding group, the Skeleton Army. See, at the time they had
way better.
Right. Yeah, but way cooler. So at that time, the Salvation Army, they had their mission in East End, but most of their ministering took place on the streets. So the Skeleton Army would stalk their gatherings and interrupt by throwing rocks, bones, tar, and rats at them.
Bones? Huh. What?
Yeah, nobody specified whether they're talking about live or dead rats, and I honestly don't know which is more unpleasant to have thrown at you. And when those tactics failed, they would just beat the shit out of the Salvation Army guys. And it'd be super easy to paint the Skeleton Army as the bad guys in this instance. But I have to point out that early Salvation Army soldiers made a habit of getting arrested repeatedly for holding unauthorized brass band parades down residential streets.
What? Okay.
Yeah, so there is every reason to believe that they needed the shit beat out of them now and again.
Plus, you try to throw a handful of tar at someone, that goes badly. You're going to get mad, just loose handful of tar. Then you grab a rat. Now you just have a rat stuck to your hand, and that's even more galling. Let's just slapping trumpet players in the face with a rat that's stuck to your hand in frustration. Like, I get it. I get it.
Walk in the house, your hand is now glued to a homophobic trumpeter. I don't want to talk about it, Susan. What's for dinner? Jesus.
But opposition be damned, the Salvation Army persevered and eventually took up root overseas.
Okay, that is something, because there is nothing that I would not quit if someone threw a tar-covered rat at me before beating the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
Yep. We didn't show it.
I'd leave the kids.
So they started a branch in America in the 1880s after a couple of their lieutenants moved to Philadelphia. In the same decade, they opened up successful branches in Australia and Ireland. Now, they weren't always successful everywhere. They also started operating in Russia in 1917. But after a couple of rocky years, the Russian government declared them a paramilitary organization and then banned them from operating in the country.
Yeah, Russia was super embarrassed. They were outperforming the military. So they had to
in 1917, yeah. Yeah, they let him back in eventually. I'm honestly shocked Putin hasn't mobilized him yet. Now, but for the first several decades of operation, they weren't really known for their philanthropy, okay? So they try to sell the history as though that was Booth's focus from day one, but his focus was on ministering to the less fortunate, not helping them. But that reputation started to change at the turn of the century. specifically after the Galveston hurricane of 1900 and the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. The Salvation Army did particularly visible work after both of those disasters, collecting money for disaster victims and, if you're inclined to be generous, providing actual charitable relief to said victims. Right? I'm not saying that they didn't provide relief, but the reason they got the reputation was for their visible fundraising, not their visible fund spending.
Right. And keep in mind that even if they were donating 99% of the money they got to actual stuff, the remaining 1%, by definition of them being a church, goes to nothing.
Yep.
It goes to the nothing that they are.
That is wrong, Eli. The dry cleaning bill for those uniforms is not going to pay for itself.
Fancy epaulets to think about here. Since then, they've become known internationally for their humanitarian work. And to their credit, they actually do quite a bit of it, right? They're active in at least 132 countries where they operate homeless shelters, run charity shops, and provide aid from natural disasters. And sometimes their aid is critical. Other times, though, not so much. Like, for example, they brag about being among the first relief agencies on the scene after the 9/11 attacks, but all they claim to have done there is, quote, provide prayer support for families of missing people, end quote. So nothing. They did nothing.
Right. Nothing.
There's another way of saying that. Yeah, right. So they were among the first groups to use the 9/11 attacks as a photo op, and they doubtless got in the way of people who were trying to do genuine help at the moment.
If somebody finds me the photo of Steve Buscemi pushing some asshole in a fake general uniform with a Paulitz out of the way so he can get into the towers, I will tattoo that on my face.
So now, according to the 2018 statistics, which were the most recent cited on Wikipedia, the Salvation Army has 111,859 employees and only 175,811 adherents. Yeah. Right. So assuming that
like 64,000 of them couldn't get jobs there.
Yeah. Right. So assuming that they're paying those employees literally anything, they're pretty heavily dependent on those red kettles to make ends meet every year. But that is not their only source of income, of course. They also famously run charity shops where people donate clothes that they then sell to poor people. They've also gotten a few huge donations along the way, most notably the time they inherited the bulk of the McDonald's fortune when Ray Kroc's third wife left them $1.6 billion in her will.
Oh, fuck. I'm leaving the GDP of Grenada to the fake army and Grimace is a taste bud. Peace out.
Just one of those bell ringer guys comes back to the Salvation Army headquarters, this bucket full of $1.6 billion. Hey, you guys want to make a bet?
Price is Right rules.
Yeah. No, but for all the charity work they do, they are still a church, which means that more often than not, they fucking suck. And we'll be looking at the dark underbelly behind those annoying bell ringers in the other half of this essay.
Well, while we buy a controlling share in the Salvation Army and institute an Elon Musk-esque downsizing, we're going to take a break for some apropos of nothing.
Money for four people. Merry Christmas. Money.
Dude, what are you doing?
Oh, hi. Remember me from yesterday?
Yeah, you came over and yelled at me when I was collecting money.
Okay, I didn't yell at you. I yelled about you being a homophobe. Those are different things.
Whatever. What are you doing here? You're not part of the Salvation Army. This is fraud.
This is not the Salvation Army. It says $Alvation Army, my very sincere church of not being a homophobe.
That's not real. That's not even real.
Hey, I actually very deeply believe in not being a homophobe, so...
And they just let you set up here in the mall?
Yeah, they did. I think maybe they thought I was with a different organization, and I guess I didn't bother to correct them, but, spot's a spot, right?
Absolutely no way. No, I'm getting a cop. Officer!
Yes, well, what seems to be the problem here, gentlemen?
This man is pretending to be a member of the Salvation Army to steal money from my church.
$Alvation Army says it right on the sign.
Whoa. Now, that's a serious accusation. You ought to be careful, buddy. You know there are just a bunch of homophobes, right?
You know what? Never mind.
I come up with good ideas on this part of the show.
Yes, you do, Eli. Yes, you do.
Well, we're back, and that short break allowed us to sufficiently recover from the revelation that churches lie. So what else do they do that isn't nice, Noah? What else
wait until my essay on Mormons. All right. So in my experience, when you point out that the Salvation Army sucks, a lot of people are fucking shocked by that. Right? The Salvation Army is a lot like Mother Teresa in that way. They've got such good PR all over the fucking country that for many people, they're the very metric of goodness that other good things are measured against, right? I mean, salvation is right there in the name. So I think if you ask, most people would know that they're a religious organization, but I think the overwhelming majority of Americans don't know that they are a church. When people drop money into those red kettles, they think that they've just made a charitable donation, not a tithe. But a tithe is what they made. And when their charitable obligations come into conflict with their religious obligations, the religious obligations always win.
Right, because if your desire to help people is more important than the rules of your invisible friend, you just start a fucking charity. That's all you do.
Yep.
You just do the charity thing.
Yep.
Or just don't vote Republican. That's another option to accomplish that. Just
And
don't.
we're recording this early, so we don't know how funny that isn't yet.
Please let that be funny.
So
I like that to be funny.
that would be nice. So to be clear, there's very little about charity or good works in the Salvation Army's theology. They're a Protestant denomination, so they believe that you get to heaven by saying the magic Jesus words, not by doing good things. Members of their church are officially governed by a list of 11 doctrines as well, and not a damn one of them says anything at all about charity or goodwill or helping other human beings. They still do charity work, of course, but they're under no religious obligation to keep doing it, and more importantly, they're under no legal obligation to keep doing it either.
Pin in things they're not legally obligated to do.
Yeah, by the way. We'll come back to that. Now, all that being said, I should point out that they tend to have a high ranking with charity ranking groups that list them. Not all of those groups do, however, because they're not actually a charity and therefore they don't have to release their numbers. They do release a lot more of their financial information than most churches, but way less than any charity. For example, we have no fucking clue how much they pay any of their executives. Right. So when sites like Charity Watch give them an A- ranking, keep in mind that they're doing so with incomplete information. What's more, since nobody can audit that information, they also just have to trust whatever the church tells them to a substantial degree.
That last sentence is religion in a nutshell, man. Holy shit. Fucking A.
That's just like telling the world you're a multi-billionaire and then, I don't know, maybe you run for president and then refuse to show anyone your tax returns. And just,
It's like that.
Sorry, your charity can't pee when we're looking? Is that what you said? No, that's cool. Totally get it. Anyway, unrelated, close your eyes. I'm going to make a big donation into your bucket right now.
But even if you believe their numbers and you assume that they're not overspending on salaries, that does not make them a good charity, right? There's more to it than dollars brought in and dollars spent on actual charitable shit, because they're anti-LGBTQ bigots, right? And if part of what you do is promote bigotry, I don't give a fuck what else you do. You're not getting my money.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, hot take. If part of what you do is promote bigotry, that's what you do. Everything else is an excuse for that thing you do.
Yep.
Fucking ancillary. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, of course, the Salvation Army is a savvy organization when it comes to their public image, so they've pushed back hard against the accusation that they're homophobic and transphobic. They spent a lot of time telling us, for example, that they provide services to LGBTQ people all the time. Right. And while that might put them ahead of the average church, it sure the hell isn't enough to dismiss the charge of homophobia, especially when in 2012 they sought to clarify their stance by releasing an official positional statement on homosexuality. Now, already that's a fucking red flag, right? I mean, citation needed has never felt the need to release a positional statement on who other people fuck. Right. People who aren't bigots pretty much never have to do that.
Okay, but while we're on the subject, can we get into that? Because I have some firm and problematic opinions.
I doubt that it's all that firm. Absolutely not. So, but here's the heart of the current statement on that subject. Quote, "The Bible teaches that God's intentions for humankind is that society should be ordered on the basis of lifelong, legally sanctioned heterosexual unions. A disposition towards homosexuality is not in itself blameworthy, nor is the disposition seen as rectifiable at will."
Whoa. Slow down there, Harvey Milk. Relax.
But they do, Heath. It goes on to say, quote, Homosexual practice, however, is, in the light of Scripture, clearly unacceptable. Such activity is chosen behavior and is thus a matter of will. It is therefore able to be directed or restrained in the same way that heterosexual urges are controlled. Homosexual practice would render any person ineligible for full membership, in parentheses, soldiership, in the army, end quote.
Yeah, that tortured prose, it reads a lot like, look, I get it. Sometimes you just want to bone some dude at the rest stop outside of Akron. But Larry, I'm telling you, I read the whole book and we are not allowed.
Yeah, and it tells you a lot. They feel the need to break it to you that you can't come into their treehouse at the end.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But yeah, so, okay, whatever.
If you come in him, you can't come in here.
Yeah, right. That's so much pithier, Tom. You should really lend them that. But yeah, so, okay, whatever. They don't ask how gay people are when they like check into a homeless shelter, and they think they deserve a pat on the back for that. And in addition to some of their best friends being gay, they also point out that even though the Civil Rights Act doesn't apply to them, the Salvation Army in the U.S., quote, does not discriminate against hiring gays and lesbians for the majority of its roughly 55,000 jobs, end quote.
The majority?
Yeah. And by the way, whether or not they refuse to help LGBTQ people, they fought a number of times to ensure that it continues to be legal for them to do so if they choose to.
Yes. And as we just mentioned, that quote implies that for some percentage of their jobs, they do discriminate.
Yeah, more than applies. Yeah.
We'll hire black people for most of the jobs at our company. Do you hear it now, guys? Do you hear it when I say it?
They do not.
They don't. They present that like that's something they deserve to be patted on the back for. Now, they've also famously fought against laws that protect LGBTQ people in general. Perhaps most memorably, in 1986, they heavily campaigned in New Zealand against the Homosexuality Law Reform Act, which sought to decriminalize homosexuality. About 20 years later, by the way, they finally got around to issuing a half-ass apology for that. They also continue to fight against laws that would force them to extend spousal benefits to same-sex spouses for the LGBTQ employees that they do decide not to discriminate against. They also withdrew their support from an anti-bullying campaign in Australian schools when they realized it was focused on countering anti-LGBTQ bullying.
The Catholic Church did the same thing. They put out a whole document about it. They called it the Papal Bull. Well, and lest you think that their bigotry is restricted to LGBTQ people, I should also point out that they recently had to retract their positional statement against racism because their membership pushed back against it and accused the organization of promoting critical race theory. Okay, so to be clear, the original statement in question just encouraged people to, quote, lament, repent, and apologize for biases or racist ideologies held and actions committed, end quote. And that was so controversial that they eventually retracted it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. So our new official position is to not be sorry for being racist. Fuck, I wish we'd stop saying our sentences mean out loud. God, man. Oh,
but not all of their controversies are based on bigotry. Some of them are just stupid. Like in 2010, when the Salvation Army in Calgary, Alberta, refused to accept toys based on Harry Potter and Twilight because of the devil, because of Satan. Yeah, one of the employees even told news outlets that such toys were destroyed.
Oh, good one.
When they received them, though the larger organization pushed back on that when they realized how evil destroyer of free toys that were donated by people for poor kids sounded.
Yeah, they could have just said they were casualties in the Salvation Wars. That would have worked.
Oh, there
too.
you go.
Yeah.
Headquarters would have loved that. And as if they were seeking some kind of triple K trifecta, by the way, they're also bigoted along religious lines, though that damn near goes without saying when you're dealing with a church. And while they'll officially say that they provide aid to anybody, regardless of their religion, they do so with the stated goal of changing that religion if it's not already Protestant Christian. So, So much so, in fact, that they were sued. Their New York division was sued in 2004 for proselytizing during government-funded social work, which was illegal back then. I mean, it technically still is until this iteration of the Supreme Court chimes in on it. But in 2004, you could sue people over that and have some reasonable assurance that something would happen. And in this case, it did. The lawsuit itself was dismissed, but the state did make some changes. And in 2010, they set up new rules to ensure that couldn't keep going on on the taxpayer's dime.
Just a red-faced bigot in a fake army uniform at the front, just screaming not to tell you about damnation. Homeless people are like, nice. This is much better. I bet he's doing a great job right now.
Hey, man, thanks for doing this great charity work. Makes me really think. You know, I'm just looking for answers about, I don't know, the way, the truth, the life. Do you know what I mean? Are you okay?
But not all of their controversies are bigotry related, of course. They've also been heavily criticized for their use of unpaid labor.
Oh,
and I'm not just talking about volunteers here, by the way. So, like in the UK, the Salvation Army's thrift shops participate in the UK government's work program, which is, it's like a program, but it has superfluous letters added to the end, which means this program. But that means that benefit claimants must work for like no compensation for 20 to 40 hours a week for the Salvation Army for periods that can last as long as 6 months.
What?
Well, you know what they always say: nothing cures poverty like working for free.
For free, yeah, exactly. Jesus. So now, but this is not their only use of damn near slave labor, by the way. They also operate ARCs, or adult rehabilitation centers, where they offer addicts a place to stay and food to eat for periods of up to 6 months. And in exchange, they are expected to work full-time jobs at Salvation Army stores, warehouses, or residences. So it's like a job, except that you get paid well below minimum wage and you have to attend church services or you get kicked out of your home. They advertised that program, by the way, with the slogan, "Doing the most good."
Oh my God.
Hey, it's me, the spokesman guy from the racism before. Hey, guys, do we want to describe our program that's literally identical to slavery as the most good? Most good. Okay. We're calling it the most good. Our slave. Most good.
And of course,
Here's
like pretty
Kanye
much,
West to tell you more.
He's a Jewish doctor.
and of course, like pretty much every church's controversy subheading on Wikipedia, the Salvation Army also has a section on raping children and then covering it up.
And there's that pin, everybody. We found that pin. There it is.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
So this one comes from Australia, where allegedly over 500 of the 30,000 kids that the Salvation Army sheltered between the 40s and the 80s were victims of sexual abuse by the church's ministers and or employees. And while they vehemently deny that number, they don't deny the accusation itself. And since they've privately settled some 474 abuse claims for 15.5 million total Australian dollars, I don't know where the fuck they get off arguing about the number either.
They had to bring so many of those padlock buckets to court to pay off that settlement. It was crazy, man.
I mean, to be fair, that one guy was wearing the bell as a belt buckle, so that's on the kids, right? That one guy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yikes.
All right.
Yeah, I knew this wasn't on the up and up when the Salvation Army Santa wanted me to sit on his face.
Was Australia.
I got Cecil good on that one. I feel good.
And look, a lot of people might listen to this and accuse me of judging the Salvation Army through too harsh a lens, right? Any organization as long and as old and as spread out worldwide as they are is bound to have a pile of controversies that sound really bad when you list them all in one podcast episode. So it's natural to ask at this point whether the world is better off without the Salvation Army, right? Like, so if they disappeared tomorrow, there would be far fewer homeless shelters and charity shops in the world. But in my mind, those could be replaced, right? Like those would be replaced, and mostly by secular groups that wouldn't have to then compete with the bazillion-dollar endowments and NFL-level advertising that the Salvation Army has. And anytime that you could replace an institutionally homophobic thing with anything else, you probably should.
Okay, but gay conversion camps are job creators. Read a fucking econ book.
Heath, now what do we say about reading the Republican Party platform on the air?
Yeah, we say they don't have one, but don't give them ideas for talking points. Right. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I hope these jokes are funny.
So all that being said, there's one historical contribution that people might want to consider before they make their minds up about the overall value of the Salvation Army, because back in 1917, the Salvation Army sent over 250 female volunteers to France to provide supplies and baked goods to American soldiers that were stationed there. The soldiers eventually took to calling them the Donut Lassies because they would often serve up donuts that had been fried in soldiers' helmets. And every source I found seems to agree that you can trace the popularity of donuts in America to this event. So, without the Salvation Army, we might have a shittier national breakfast pastry. I'm not sure how you want to weigh that, but you should probably weigh it more than none, at least.
The only fight more contentious than religion, donut or Danish, finally comes to citation needed.
Are people saying Danish is better?
No.
Danish is the
Listen to
answer.
our
That's why
friends.
people would say
Better
that.
at all. It's like so not
They
better.
thought about this for like a year and a half.
close.
Ridiculous.
The
Ridiculous.
only
Ridiculous
answer.
indeed.
Tom, you're
Don't-
canceled.
Cheers, Cecil.
I
Cheers,
am happy to be
Cheers.
canceled. I will die on the Danish hill.
The four of us are all going to link donuts like the Olympic rings or whatever. You're
Right?
going to be standing here with a
Yeah,
fucking Danish, just
fucking
knocking it against the
gross
side.
Danish.
Is it 4-1 against
It's 4-1.
Oh, yeah.
bro.
Danish?
you're-
It's
you
everybody to one.
Everybody.
No, it-
There's like 4
Eli?
people in the
Eli, are you
States.
Danish or donut?
I really want, because Danish is very clearly the snobbier answer, but even I like donuts more than Danish.
Oh my God, that's insane. That's
I
insane.
love it. I love it. They don't let poor people have Danishes. I love that about them.
Danish is so superior to the donut.
Okay, let's make Tom be quiet. If you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be, Noah?
You're better off donating that money to modestneeds.org. Quick
Yes.
before time runs out to get your Vulgarity for Charity donation. And we have 2 more days, people making a record. Come on.
Yes, agree.
And
All
Danish
right,
are like the cantaloupe of the breakfast pastry.
That is an outrageous thing
They
to say.
are.
Outrageous.
They're like the
He-
honeydew melon.
Stay where
Yeah,
you
they're
are.
like
I'm
honeydew
fighting
fruit
you.
salad.
Yes,
Nobody,
yes,
that shit's
absolutely.
going nowhere.
I will be there
Absolutely.
in 4 hours. We're fighting.
100%.
All right.
Yes.
Noah, can you tell me which of the following is not one of the 11 tenets of the Salvation Army verbatim? A. We believe that the scriptures of the Old and New Testament were given by inspiration of God and that they only constitute the divine rule of Christian faith and practice. B. We believe that there is only one God who is infinitely perfect, the creator, preserver, and governor of all things, and who is the only proper object of religious worship. C. We believe that our first parents were created in a state of innocency, but by their disobedience they lost their purity and happiness, and that, in consequence of their fall, all men have become sinners, totally depraved, and as such are justly exposed to the wrath of God. Or D, literally anything about helping people or charity.
Yeah, see how it goes. It's going to be D. The D's going to be the answer.
D,
There you
and
go.
it's so fun. When I read that sentence, I was like, oh no, it's making it fun. I looked him up. They're the last thing a guy emails us before you block him.
All right, Noah, you've been pretty harsh on the Salvation Army, but charity work is important work. So what are other alternatives? A, create a robust system of federally funded programs with transparency and accountability to avoid abuse and create workflows and economies of scale to strike at the root of the systemic issues that otherwise force us to slap haphazard, unregulated charitable Band-Aid solutions on economic problems we disingenuously label as social failings.
Boo, nerd.
B, failing that, head over to modestneeds.org, donate at least $50 and email your receipt to vulgarityforcharity@gmail.com because there's literally no chance we'll do the first thing.
Yeah. No, it's B. It's
yikes.
B.
It's B, Vulgarity for Charity.
Okay, I don't have a depressing one. Here we go, Noah. What's the best weapon in a religious war against the Salvation Army? A, upside down crossbow. B, canon law. C, a torpedo. D, a heat seeking missile. Seeking missile. Okay.
All right,
those are good, but you got to pick something.
I'm so desperately trying to come up with a good Hedy Lamar pun to throw in with torpedo. I got nothing, but it's definitely C. Torpedo.
You are correct. It is torpedo.
All right, Noah, I'm going to name some other Republicans who look like supervillains, and you pick one as a question.
Sure.
A, Mitch McConnell looks like wet scarecrow. Like the burlap
So
thing
good.
is all
So
gooey
good.
now.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Goofface. He's Goofface, like Two-Face. B,
Oh, yeah.
Marco Rubio looks like Kingpin's fetus in a wig. See?
does. Yeah.
Ted Cruz looks like Wolverine's only weakness was a really bad divorce in his 50s and now he's evil. Or D, Steve Bannon is Krang.
Steve Bannon is Krang.
I will never
shit.
not see that.
Yes.
Wow. Gosh. Is it secret answer E, all of the above?
It is E, all the above. Well done. I didn't think you were gonna get that.
I thought it might be.
Noah, you win this week.
All right. Well, I think we can all agree it's been too long since the last Heath essay, so I'm going to nominate Heath.
All right. Well, for Tom, Heath, Eli, and Noah, I'm Cecil. Thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week. And by then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, donate to Vulgarity for Charity at modestneeds.org. And if you already did that, do it again. Just donate again if you did it early. And if you'd like to help keep the show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave us a 5-star review anywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
And then once it was nice and covered with syrup, I would just go to town on that ass. You know what I'm saying?
Fucking A. I just want to cuddle with it. I just want to lay my head on his ass like a pillow and then just go to sleep.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
You guys are really counting on the fact that Keith doesn't listen to our shows, huh?
Yes, we are.
We are, yes, absolutely. But donk-a-donk.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.